On this day in 2012, as of the release date of this video, 10 years ago, the first iPad mini was released to the public. Of course, let's look back at it. So what did the iPad mini bring to the table that wasn't previously available? The first notable feature of the iPad mini is that it's quite thin compared to other iPads at the time, which is very, very appealing to many people who want a good cross between a smartphone and a laptop, but not one that was as heavy as a 13-inch MacBook Air of the era. The second notable feature of the iPad mini 1 is its design. Look at it. This is the first iPad to adopt this kind of design that was still mostly used until the iPad 10th generation, releasing later this month. The third notable feature of the iPad mini 1 is that it was one of the first iPads to come with Apple's then new Lightning port, which also debuted on the iPad 4 that released also 10 years ago today and was reversible and smaller, unlike the 30-pin ports seen on previous Apple devices for the prior 9 years. However, the fourth and most notable feature of the first iPad mini was its price tag of $220 in the US, making it the cheapest iPad in the lineup. That made it very appealing to millions of people. The iPad mini 1 was initially made to tackle the hundreds, if not thousands, of cheap Android tablets flooding the market by being smaller and cheaper than other iPads, which were the advantages that the crappy Android tablets did offer, and is even said to be the last Apple product approved by Steve Jobs. That claim is disputed with the iPhone 5S. The iPad mini 1 was sold in slate, which is infamous for fading over time, and scratching, and silver for the first 11 months of being on the market. In September of 2013, however, Apple replaced the slate iPad mini 1 with the space gray iPad mini 1. The iPad mini 1 proceeded to sell until October 2014 when Apple discontinued it, and even then it still sold secondhand. It proceeded to receive software updates until iOS 10 when it was dropped from Apple's iOS support for iOS 10. That was in 2016. However, the first iPad mini wasn't without its issues. The first controversy with the iPad mini 1 that excluded Retina display, meaning that you can count its pixels. If you zoom in really closely, right here you can see its pixels. Unlike other new iPads and new iPads today. The second issue with the iPad mini 1 is that if yours is slate, scratches tend to be far more noticeable than on other colors of it, and that the slate finish tends to rub off over time. The third controversy of the iPad mini 1 is that it runs iOS 9 way too slowly, which I certainly understand after using an iPhone 4S, iPod Touch 5, iPad 2, and an iPad 3 on iOS 9. Despite its issues, the first iPad mini still has a massive legacy today, especially with me. I got this very iPad that you see back in Christmas of 2012, and I used it until the spring of 2014 when it shattered due to one of my cats knocking it off, hence why it still runs iOS 7.0.2. I have fond memories of this iPad, despite me not using it for very long because I loved its portability and its camera, which my iPad 1, it sort of had the portability, though not really, and definitely didn't have the camera. As you can tell, I still have all my old apps. These were obviously just my mom's apps because I used to have to sign up with my mom's Apple ID, but yeah. I remember playing lots of games and watching lots of YouTube videos on this iPad. In fact, this is the Apple device that I've had for the longest time that is still in my collection today, because my first Apple device, my old iPad 1, broke due to motherboard faults. My mother threw it out. In fact, I am still looking for an iPad mini 1 and iOS 6 to relive my old memory. In fact, if you collect Apple devices, the iPad mini 1 is not a bad option for a collector. They are only between $25 to $50 second-handed if they do not run iOS 6 or are not sealed, which is pretty cheap for a collector's item. Of course, if you don't want iOS 9 on yours, you can downgrade the iPad mini 1 to iOS 8.4.1, dual boot to any iOS version. Did you ever have the iPad mini 1? Please comment that down below. As always, I am the iTunes fanboy, and peace out.